Well, hello everybody. Jeff Cowan here from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, the place that's trained more successful service advisors than any other place on the planet. I'll guarantee you that. Hey, I'm back today and welcome back to the latest edition of my podcast entitled Right Service. Write Your Own Paycheck, the path to making over $100,000 a year when writing service in the automotive industry in the United States of America, Canada, and or Australia. And you know, at this very recording, just over 20% of you are doing just that, making $100,000, $200,000 a year writing service. But that means that nearly 80% of you are not. So what do you do about that? Well, here's what I would do if I were you. I would watch this podcast. I would go back and watch all my other podcasts. I would go to my website, Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk website. It's automotiveservicetraining.com, automotiveservicetraining.com, because when you get there, you're going to find not only all my podcasts, but you're going to find articles I've written, blogs I've involved in. You're going to find all the tools, techniques, word tracks, everything you need to be the absolute best service advisor that you can be. And if you're going to be one, why not be the absolute best? Well, I'm coming to you today with a really strong message. If you really, I don't care what it is you're doing, if you've stumbled into this podcast, by the way, and you're not into service advising, I don't care what your life goals are. If you really want to achieve the ultimate success, you got to listen to this podcast, because this is what this is about. As a matter of fact, here is what it's titled. Would you sleep in a queen-size bed with 4 other people for 5 years to realize your goals? Now let me read you that title again and ask you that question. Would you sleep in a queen-size bed with 4 other people for 5 years if it meant you could realize your goals? Okay, so where does this come from? Well, if you know much about me, you know that I'm a lifelong learner and I'm a lifetime reader. I read every day, I study every day, I try to learn something that I didn't know the day before, and most days I accomplish that. Doing that, I've read over 100 biographies on rock and roll bands, rock stardom, rock gods, rock queens, divas, and the whole thing. And what I found is, as a matter of fact, a lot of these biographies are pretty much all the same, and after listening to them and hearing their struggles and how they got successful and whatever, I honestly believe this, that anybody that wants to be a rock and roll star can be if you're willing to make the sacrifices and pay the price that it takes to become a rock star. Now, what do I mean? Well, while talent is important, believe it or not, it's not the key ingredient, in my opinion, being a rock star. As a matter of fact, in one of my favorite rock and roll biographies, Walk This Way, written by Stephen Davis, it's the autobiography of Aerosmith. It describes what the band went through to become the rock gods that they are today. The first year that the band was together, the 5 members, they shared an apartment just outside of Boston. They shared an apartment. All of them lived in the same place. And for the first year that they were together, even though they played a couple of gigs here and there, they largely, for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, practiced the same 20 songs over and over and over. 12 hours a day, 20 songs, so that when they did play out, they could be perfect and powerful. 2 of the members in the band had little to no experience in music, had never been in a band, and were largely invited into the band because of the equipment they had. The front man, everybody knows, Steven Tyler, the lead singer, he'd never been a lead singer or front man in a band. As a matter of fact, he'd been in several bands up to that point, but always as the drummer, okay? Now, after practicing for more than a year, they spent the next 5 years playing around Boston, the New England area, to small crowds and dumpy bars with little to no compensation to people that really didn't care a lot about them. When they needed to travel to a gig, they required they stayed overnight. They typically stayed in a small little one-room hotel with it was really seedy and whatnot. It might have 1 queen-size bed, might have 2 queen-size beds that they had to share with the other bandmates and the small road crew that they had. When they finally got good enough to be an opening act to some of the larger bands that returned in the day and playing larger venues, they still did so for very little to no money and traveled from gig to gig in a broken down, run down old delivery truck. Okay? So that's the kind of sacrifices they made. And after reading, again, over 100 of these biographies, I believe that if you're willing to do what I just described or something similar to it, you're already 95% of the way of being a major rock star. Because again, I think everybody can be one if they want to. And think about it, it's really not that far of a stretch. We all know, I certainly do, a friend or a family member that is an outstanding musician. They've got an unbelievable voice. They can play drums or the guitar better than most of the people that you go pay hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars to go see live. But they're not rock stars. And you scratch your head and go, why aren't they rock stars? Well, it's easy. They weren't willing to sleep in a queen-size bed with their bandmates for a 5-year period to reach that stardom. They weren't willing to make the sacrifice. So why do I talk about this? Because just like I believe anybody can be a rock star if they want to be, if they're willing to pay the price, I think anybody, especially in the United States, that lives here can be a millionaire, and a millionaire many times over if they're willing to pay the price to do so. You know, I get asked all the time, Jeff, what's the difference between a service advisor that makes $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, you know, something like that, versus one that makes $100,000, $150,000, $175,000, $200,000 a year? You know, what is it that makes them different? Well, what makes them different, these people are writing service, and some of you are watching this that are making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. You know what the secret is. You were willing to make personal sacrifices to achieve that level of success. So therein lies the secret to success. Are you willing to make the sacrifices? So what type of sacrifices are we talking about? What would be the equivalent to an advisor, you know, sleeping with their bandmates in a queen-size bed for 5 years and riding around in an old broken-down delivery truck doing their job for nothing? I've got 7 things that is required that you're going to have to do if you truly want to meet your goals. Here we go. Number 1. First and foremost, you have to be committed to complete and total success and do anything within the legal limits of the law to see that through. So let me repeat that. You must be committed to achieving complete and total success at any cost within the legal limits of the law. Now, this is not to say that service advisors should rip people off or misguide them and sell them stuff they don't need, because you don't have to. Okay? But what it means is they're willing to put everything else on the back burner, or nearly everything else on the back burner, to realize the success. Now, when I read these biographies, really that's what the rock stars said, is that their goals were so big it cast shade on anything that would be a roadblock to them. And what they did when they got started is they told their family and friends, hey, look, if you want to be a family, you want to be part of my family, you want to be part of my friend, you have to support me. You have to understand that I'm going out on the road, and you may not see me for weeks and months at a time because I'm willing to go out and do what it takes to reach that superstardom. I did the same thing myself. You know, when you take a look at my career, I'm not ashamed to say this. I've had a great career, and it's even getting better every day. You know, for a guy that came out of the cornfields of Indiana with 0 college education and lackluster high school grades and no direction and no career goals, I've done really well for myself. And I did the same thing these rock and rollers did. I went to my family, I went to my friends, and I said, look, you know, if you want to be with me, then you have to support me. You have to understand that I'm going to go do whatever I've got to do within the legal limits of the law. I never ripped anybody off. I never took advantage of anybody, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach these levels of success because that's what I want. That's number 1. Number 2, being the first to work is a must, and staying late and being the last to leave at the end of the day is a must. You just have to. I mean, now, although this is a trait that can subside throughout your career, for the ones that are truly successful, they understand that to maintain that success, they have to continue to do what got them there. So most of the time, these people that are highly successful, they're the first in the office and they're the last to leave. I can't tell you, after being in business for over 35 years, most days I'm the first one in, most days I'm the last one to leave. I mean, that's just the way it is. You have to be committed to that. And if you are committed to that, you know, and you do it the right way, you know, your queen-size bed will eventually evolve into a California king-size bed, and your bandmates will be replaced with your soulmate. Okay? That's what happened to me. I got to tell you what. You know, I was single much longer than I ever wanted to be, and I held out because I knew what the commitment was going to be, and I held out for the right woman. I mean, I wanted to be married and start a family in my early 20s, and you know, by the late 20s, you know, have it all under control and all that stuff. But I stayed single because I knew I had to have the right person that was going to support me and allow me to do things like be the first one to work and the last one to leave. And it worked out great. I mean, it worked out great because I replaced my bandmate, so to speak, with my soulmate, and that's for sure. Number 3, service advisor rock stars are willing to work on their days off without hesitation and without argument. Now, this may require that they come in and work a full shift, in addition to the other days they're working. It may be simply going in when you're not scheduled to work and doing things that are going to prepare you, make you better prepared, so when you do work, you're ready to go. Things like writing handwritten thank you notes, things for like calling customers and updating files and working on getting more people in and working on promotions and the like. And it also simply may mean working from a home office and doing those things, making your notes and writing handwritten thank you notes and stuff. But they're willing to work their days off. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've worked over a weekend, how many times I go home and work in the evening. I mean, just last weekend I wouldn't do anything else. So why not work for 4 or 5 hours a day and get some things done so that when I am off, I can enjoy it. But you're going to have to be willing to. If you want to hit those big numbers, you're going to have to be willing to work your days off. Okay, number 4, and it doesn't mean you have to do it every day, every week, because I take my fair share of time, my fair share of time off as well. But you have to be willing to do it if that's what needs to be done. 4, missing out. Okay, this one's a tough one. Missing out on family and social events is a sacrifice that the truly successful are willing to make. Now, it does not mean that you have to miss a sibling's wedding. It does not mean that you need to miss the birth of a child. But it does mean you're probably going to miss one of your kids' sporting events here or there. It does mean that you're going to miss a family dinner here or there. I mean, for instance, on my 50th birthday, a few years back, my family was extremely disappointed with me because I was a few thousand miles away in Lexington, Kentucky at a Dealer 20 group. Now, although they were a little upset with me because I was doing that on my 50th birthday, because I guess to them it was a bigger event to me, but even though they were upset about that, they weren't upset several months later when I took them on a 5-star vacation over to Hawaii. I mean, they got it and they've understand their whole life. This is part of the deal. I'm going to be there when I can. I'm going to make every effort to be there when I can, but if duty calls, duty calls. I mean, it's exactly what it is, And I got to tell you, there are many times that my family wished I would have been there for this event or that event, and I wasn't there, but again, they understood, they accepted, because they knew in the long run it was going to be better for everybody involved. Now, I've got a couple more things here that we're going to go over before we complete this, because remember I told you I had 7. We'll pick it back up here in a second with number 5, but I want to tell you this. I get asked all the time what service drives can really do. And I say it all the time in these. I mean, in these podcasts and every place I go. I mean, I haven't seen a service drive yet. They can't do at least 2.5 hours per repair order. If you're high end, at least 3.5 hours per repair order, including oil changes. I mean, it's just there to get. Effective labor rate, 92 to 93% all day long. Perfect survey scores all day long. Customer retention at 80, 85% all day long, one of the easiest things to get. Eliminating heat cases and disgruntled customers. You shouldn't even have them in the first place, but you can get rid of those. And so what's it take for people to get those type of results on their service drive? Well, they have to be leaders, they have to be bold, and they have to take action. So if you want those type of numbers and you're ready to step up and be a leader, and you're ready to step up and take bold action and be bold and take action, then here's what we got for you. I mean, be a leader. Get a hold of me and have one of my service trainers visit your service department tomorrow. They'll stand with you side by side on the service drive, coach, critique, role play, and even write service with you to show you how it's done. We can do management training from there, set up BDCs, we can set up quick loops, we can do anything. Okay, so be a leader, contact us, and have one of my trainers in your store tomorrow. Be bold and sign up for my newly redone online virtual training. There's nothing like it on the planet. It's never been presented like this. The content is equal to nobody's because it's better than everybody else's and it gets the results, but it takes bold action to do that. So call me. We'll get that set up for you tomorrow, and take action. Reach out to us and sign your people up for one of my upcoming workshops. Now, just next week, I think I called over to the venue. We have a couple seats left. I'm doing a 2-day workshop in Las Vegas, and I will guarantee you this. This is an event. Nobody's ever done a workshop like I'm going to do on September 23rd and 24th, 2021. Nobody's ever done it. If you can't be there, then you need to stream it, because we're going to stream it live, and it's not your normal Zoom meeting where everybody's just sitting there being bored. This is going to be streamed like you've never seen. It's going to look like a real television show. Nobody's ever done what I'm getting ready to do next week. Not even close. It'll take them 10 years to catch up with what I'm going to do. I also have workshops coming up, the 1-day version coming up in places like Chicago, Nashville, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Indiana throughout the fall. So reach out and give us a call and get your people signed up. So again, be a leader, And to be a leader, you have to be bold, and you have to take action. Take action today. Call us at 1-800-248-2931. Get our trainers in your store, get our virtual training turned on, and come to one of my workshops. You got to do that right now. So back to what it takes to be totally successful. You know, like if you want to be the rock star service advisor. Number 5, this one's really important. This is the hardest one to do for most people, but here's what it is. Eliminating the naysayers and non-believers is a sacrifice you will definitely have to make. Now again, like I said, this is one of the hardest things that you're going to have to do, but it does mean you're going to have to hang out. You probably will have to hang out less with some of your immediate family members because they're naysayers. I know I certainly had to. You're going to have to hang out with few of your friends because they're going to be naysayers, and they're going to try and talk you down and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't go and do what you're going to do, but it's something you're going to absolutely have to do if you want to be successful. You know, I mean, I had to. I mean, it just got down to, do I want to continue to hang out with everybody over here and live a life that I really don't want, or am I going to have to break away from some of these people and go do what I know it's going to take for me to be successful? And I went for it. Now, it wasn't like that I went to these people and said, I can't be your friend anymore. It almost became natural. I mean, it just became where we just didn't see each other as much, you know, because what would happen is this: they're the ones that stopped calling me. I never stopped calling family members, and I never stopped calling my friends, but they stopped calling me, and here's why. They'd call up and say, hey, Cowan, why don't you come over and watch Monday Night Football with us? And my response would be, you know, I'd love to, guys. I know it's a great game, but you know what I got to do? I got to write some handwritten thank you notes, so I'm going to stay in tonight, and I'm going to get that taken care of. And after several phone calls like that, they just stopped calling. They gave up. And you know what? And it's almost natural, because what happens is your goals change and evolve, and you strive to be what you want to be. You'll have less and less in common with your old friends, some of your old friends, not all of them, some of your old friends and some of your family members, and you just kind of separate, because people like to hang around with people they have a lot in common with. And if you start being really, really successful, you're going to lose some friends. I mean, you just will. And you know, when my friends went away, I don't think any of them were really surprised. I mean, because, you know, when we were growing up, we all talked about the goals we wanted to have, and we all had pretty similar goals. I think the only thing that surprised them is that I was the one that was actually going to go for it. I was the one that was making the sacrifice. I think that's the only surprise it was, you know, and I don't like them any less, and they don't like me any less. It's just that, you know, over time, I can't hang out with naysayers and people that are trying to pull me down. You're either on the bus with me and you want to be a rock star, or you don't. You know, and I've been very lucky throughout my career to get to meet some really extremely successful people in all walks of life. And I've even got friends that are rock stars, you know, true rock stars. And every one of them, if you sit down, you get them talking, will tell you about how they don't see this friend anymore and this family member anymore, and the reason they quit hanging out with them is because they're always trying to talk them down. And as they went up the ladder of success, those people just quit calling them. But it is something that you're going to have to do, okay? And it'll get easier and easier and easier. I mean, it just got down to this, you know. Do you want to be on the bus with me, or do you not want to be on the bus with me? That's what it gets down to. Number 6. To advance, you'll have to risk what you already have. To advance, you're going to have to risk what you already have. Now, this is where a lot of people hit the wall when it comes to reaching all of their goals. And what it is they like the idea of a bigger house. They like the idea of a nicer vehicle and more frequent vacations. And so when the next rung on the ladder exposes itself, they don't seize the moment, and they don't seize the step, and they don't move up. So why is that? Well, it's because they're not willing to sacrifice what they already have. It's kind of like a bird in the hand type of thing, right? I mean, they're not willing to risk and make the sacrifices that's going to be necessary for them to totally get all of their goals. I mean, it's kind of like this, you know. You hear people say this all the time. Well, I could have had that, you know, and I would have taken that new territory, but it would have meant that I would have had to travel more. Okay, they didn't want to make the sacrifice, right? Or I would have loved being the new manager, but I would have had to give up more of my evenings, and I just wanted to be around my family more. Or I had the chance to grow my business, but I would have had to move out of state. You see, what happened was they reached a point where they didn't want to risk what they have to get what they wanted. And that's okay? Because in life, with very, very few exceptions, you're going to have to risk what you have if you want to move forward. You're just going to have to. And as a matter of fact, if you're a successful person, you look back and you'll see, yeah, you know what? I made this sacrifice. I mean, I look back over my life and there's some things I've missed that I wish I could have been at. but I also realized that it was worth it in the long run because of what I got from it, And if a person, you're sitting there and you've not reached your goals, you've not reached what you consider to be complete and total success, when you look back over your life, you're going to see, because at some crossroads, and maybe it was 2 or 3 crossroads, you weren't willing to take the next step. You weren't willing to make that extra sacrifice. You weren't willing to roll the dice with what you already had to move forward. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. You're going to have to sacrifice something if you want to move up. Okay? And finally here, number 7. And as a matter of fact, you have to sacrifice a lot of things if you want to move up, but you'll always have to roll the dice with what you have. And I sit here and say that before I get into number 7. I'm doing that right now. I've been in this business for 35 years, and at this point in time, a lot of my peers that are doing what I'm doing in some area or another, they've kind of calmed down and they're focusing more on retirement and the like, and they're not willing to risk very much, especially coming out of the situation that the United States is and whatever. And I have just recently doubled, tripled, quadrupled down. I have invested thousands and thousands in several new projects I have coming up. As a matter of fact, this workshop I'm doing in Vegas, it is not cheap to pull this off and stream it and present it the way I'm going to present it. I'm willing to double down and risk everything I have right now because I know that's what it's going to take to get me to that final level, you know what I mean? And I'm happy to do it because I know I'm going to be successful. And my wife gets it. She's all behind me and the whole like. So number 7, staying current can only be accomplished by being a lifelong learner. You have to do that. You must make a commitment to studying, reading books, listening to podcasts, attending workshops, and continue to educate yourself. Intellectual development must become a part of your life if you want to remain relevant. The top 1% of income earners in the world dedicate at least 1 hour, and most many hours, but at least 1 hour a day, to studying. This used to be a very time-consuming and hard thing to do because you literally had to set time aside. But today, with technology the way it is, any time can become study time. Anytime you can learn. It's easy. It's easy. It's easy. It's easy. You can make study time riding on the way to work and riding back in your car. You can listen to podcasts when you're getting ready for work, when you're getting ready for bed, as you're cooking dinner, as you're eating lunch. It's right at your fingertips, and it's something that you're going to have to do if you really want to be successful. And I got to tell you, it takes a lot of discipline to start becoming a lifelong learner. I didn't hit this part of me. I really did develop number 7. Probably until I'd been in business for 3 or 4 years. And then I started to realize, that I've got to get this knowledge. How do I get this knowledge? And I started reading, and at first it took a lot of discipline to commit that hour every day, but then it was like a drug. And now I don't know what to do if I'm not doing that. As a matter of fact, one of the most exciting parts of my day every day is when I get home in the evening or wherever it is I'm at, and I get to take that half hour to an hour and read whatever book I'm reading. I'm reading a great book right now on a business book that's just a stunning one. It really, really is. So, number 7, again, you got to be a lifelong learner, and although it's maybe tough to get started on doing, the payback is huge compared to the time that you'll invest in it. What are you doing anyway, right? So as you can see, getting what you truly want will require that you do many things that you may not enjoy and you may not want to do at the time. But in every one of these rock biographies I've read, the first several chapters are dedicated to these bands playing in dingy clubs and to unappreciative audiences, making just enough to barely get by, road crews who quit at the last quit at the last minute, meaning that the band has to set up and tear down their own equipment, load it, unload it. And none of these people ever enjoyed this, and most of the people despise doing it. And they despise having to make these sacrifices. But they did it anyway. Their inner hunger for complete and total success was bigger than being eaten up by the road, if you will. Okay? Being eaten up by the road. Now, they understood that they had to pay the price. And all successful people understand that. Sacrifice is the price to admission. Okay? Sacrifice is the price of admission to being successful. You're going to have to sacrifice, And in my early days, I would always get really, really nervous when a salesperson that I knew that was as good as me or sometimes even better was going to start their own consulting firm. I'd get really nervous because I knew if they did that I'd have to compete with them. But what I started finding out is because I don't even pay attention to people that do it anymore, is that most of these people were never going to make the sacrifice that it required to be successful. They were never going to give up their 1,000 square foot apartments to live in a 300 square foot apartment for 4 or 5 years, like I eventually did for 12 years. They were never going to let a bill get behind 1 or 2 months and risk not having gas or electricity in their house. They were never going to park an old beat up piece of junk car around the corner just in case the bank was looking for it. They were never going to make those sacrifices, so I quit focusing on those people. And even today when I run an ad for a trainer here at Pro Talk, I mean, without fail, 1/3 of the people that apply to be a trainer at Pro Talk are coming to me because their consulting firm that they started just a year, 2 years, 3 years before is failing. And it's not because their product was bad. It's not because they didn't know what they were doing. Most of the time it's because they weren't willing to make the sacrifices that it takes to be a successful business owner. They weren't willing to take a step down from the lifestyle they had. They weren't willing to take a step back from the house and roll the dice with it. Hey, if I do this right, I might get a house that's twice the size. If it's a bit more of a bumpy road the first 2 or 3 years, I might have to take a house that's half the size I'm used to living in, and they weren't willing to do that. Now, I never hold it against them. Okay, because success can only be defined by those people who are going for it, you know. And I never hold it against anybody. I mean, you got to do what's comfortable for you. Because I've known many people who have raised successful families. They've had really nice houses. They've gone on vacations, and they've had a great lifestyle. And then when they walked off into retirement, it was really a great life. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to setting your goals. I mean, it's not. But you have to understand that the only way you're ever going to hit all of your goals is you have to sacrifice at some point in time. The United States of America was born out of people willing to make sacrifices. I mean, the Founding Fathers, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a document that everybody understood. If we go to war with Britain and we win, then we're going to have the United States of America. If we lose, we're going to hang by the neck. Britain's going to come and get us and take us back to England and hang us in the streets of England. They made great sacrifices. They slept in seedy bars and 2 to 3 guys to a bed, beds that had lice in it. And rarely the Founding Fathers were ever at home because they were traveling and making the sacrifices to build this great nation. It's what our nation's built on. So in America, whether you're a service advisor, a politician, an astronaut, you're a military soldier, a business tycoon, an athlete, or a small businessman like myself, or you're a rock star, you have to understand that sacrifice always has been and always will be the cornerstone to your success. It just will be. And so if you're at a point where living your dreams, and you have to know that it's going to cost you some sacrifice to make it happen. So if you're not realizing your goals, when you look back, you will see that because at some crossroads, like I said earlier, you determined that the sacrifice that it was going to take to accomplish all those goals you said you really wanted, you weren't willing to make that final sacrifice, And if you did make the sacrifice and you are successful, you're going to see it's because you did that. So with sacrifice, even today, you can accomplish whatever you want, especially if you're living here in the United States of America, Canada, or Australia. It may get down to whether or not you're willing to eat breakfast, willing to eat breakfast cereal 3 times a day for months on end. It may get down to whether or not you're willing to sleep in a queen-size bed with your bandmates in a dingy hotel and ride around on a bus that sucks and smells, And I just have to tell you this, based on how enjoyable my life has been, I encourage you to take the mic. I encourage you to get on the bus and get the show on the road, your show on the road, because the spotlight of success is the warmest light you'll ever feel, but only if you're first willing to sacrifice in the cold of the unlit stage. Success is out there for everybody, and there's no excuse to anybody out there that would keep you from getting it. The only excuse is are you willing to pay? The only thing that's going to determine your success and the level that you reach is the number and the amount of sacrifice you're willing to make. And like I said earlier, there's no right or wrong answer to this, but if you really want to go for it, because I've worked with thousands of these service advisors out there that make $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, even $200,000 a year. And these are the people that are committed to complete and total success. They want the highest hours per reporter. They have the highest effective labor rate. They have perfect survey scores. They don't have disgruntled customers, but instead have people waiting in line to talk to them. They make the high income. They have perfect survey scores because they're committed. They're the first ones to work. They're the last ones to leave. They know everybody around them that knows them knows that to be on their bus, you have to be committed to their success. They're willing to miss a baseball game that their son's playing in tonight here and there. They're willing to miss a family dinner here or there because they got to stay and get this success. And their family is in on it because their family understands that, hey, if mom or dad is not here tonight, that just means that we're going to get to do that much more when we get over to Hawaii on our vacation. They take time and they learn and they dedicate time to it every day to learning. They're willing to go in on their days off. They take people that are naysayers and bring them down, and they take them and they get them out of their lives, and they surround themselves with other people that are just like them, that are positive, that are upbeat, that are making sacrifices, and build them up. That's what they do. They're willing. They were willing when they first started out to sleep in a queen-size bed with 4 other people to realize their dreams, and they continue to do it to this day. So that's the secret. If you're wondering how to become successful, it's sacrifice. If you're wondering what the difference is between somebody that makes $50,000 to $75,000 a year on a service drive to somebody that makes $100,000 or more, it's the sacrifice. What are you willing to do? What price are you willing to pay to be successful? Because the price of admission is sacrifice. Hey, my name's Jeff Cowan. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I enjoyed presenting it to you, and I'll be back either next week or the week after that with another podcast. We got more of them coming. They're all on the dockets there. It's just a matter of getting the time and being around California here in the studio so I can record them for you. So I'm glad I was here today. I'm glad that you're here today. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, dial us anytime at 1-800-248-2931, 1-800-248-2931. And anybody that picks up that phone can answer any question you have. If you want to talk to me direct, here's my cell phone number, 317-506-1003, 317-506-1003. Now, if you call and I'm around, I'll pick it up and talk to you 7 days a week. But you have to understand, I travel a lot. I'm a very busy guy, very committed, making sacrifices so I can accomplish my goals. If you call and I don't pick up, it may take me 24 hours to call you back, but if you call me, I'll call you back. So with that, thank you for being here today. I've had fun. I hope you had fun. I will see you here shortly, and between now and next week, make it, or whenever it is we see each other again, make it the most successful life you can, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. So with that, on behalf of myself, my immediate family, my Pro Talk family, God bless you all. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon. Come to my workshops, best in the business.